Hello, my name is Caitlin Martinez, and my project is on Georges Lemaitre, the father of the Big Bang. And I am in ABE 170, and my teacher is Dr. Peter Waller. So here's my presentation. Okay, so we have Georges Lemaitre. He was the father of the Big Bang Theory, as you probably know. Lemaitre was an inspiration to many people, and it's unfortunate because a lot of people really don't know who he is, and even before this class I didn't know who he was, and I'm really thankful that I got to know about him and research his life, and now I know a lot about him, and it just really makes me appreciate all the things that he's done. And I really like him because he was really devoted to his faith, but he also stood up for what he believed in, and he was a scientist, and a lot of scientists weren't religious, so this is the reason I think I like him so much, because he would always stand up for his faith. He was smart, he had a lot of motivation and a lot of heart. He attended universities, he went to the war, and he actually came up with Hubble's law, which we'll talk about, but he wasn't recognized for it. And in the midst of everything, he was questioned by many scientists and also questioned by other Catholics that accused him of going against his faith. But through everything, he stayed true to his faith and beliefs, and this is why I find him to be such an inspiration. Lemaitre was born on July 17th in 1894. His parents were Joseph Lemaitre and Margaret. He first went to the Catholic University of Louvain and studied engineering, which you have to be really smart to be studying engineering. All the smart people are majoring in it. When he was an undergraduate, he volunteered to go to the war, and he was actually awarded the Military Cross. And after that, he returned to his studies and then switched to mathematics. So you can see he kind of had a broad range of what he was interested in. He started out as an engineer and then went to mathematics. Also in 1923, he became ordained as a Catholic priest at the Catholic seminary. And from there, he attended Cambridge and studied with Eddington, and then went on to Harvard. And that's it for that one. Okay, so when Lemaitre was attending MIT, he wrote a dissertation, and in his thesis, he pretty much stated Hubble's law, and it basically was found out that he came up with Hubble's law in his dissertation, but he never got any credit for it, obviously, because it's called Hubble's law. And Hubble's law is basically, in a basic form, it's the idea that the speed that galaxies recede from us is proportional to their distance from us. And even though Hubble's law and the way Lemaitre said it were slightly different, they were basically around the same range. For example, Lemaitre calculated that the Earth was almost 4 billion years old, while Hubble calculated a 2 billion year old universe, which in billions, that's pretty close. And a lot of people said that Hubble's friends had deleted the pages from Lemaitre's dissertation on purpose, but others thought Lemaitre intentionally left it out because he wasn't really concerned with receiving the credit on it, because he had more of a focus on discovering the expanding universe, which he obviously did because he came up with the Big Bang Theory. But as for Hubble's law, he didn't get any credit for it, even though it's still a big controversy today. But yeah. So next we'll talk about Lemaitre and the Big Bang Theory. So basically he believed and came up with the universe started from an atom, and it was very condensed and it diffused into a whole universe, and that was the very beginning of time from one atom. And note that this is a very simple explanation. There's a lot more detail and a lot more depth that goes into it, but this is just a very basic, simple idea of what Lemaitre came up with. Lemaitre used a couple things to describe the beginning of the universe, and one was a day without yesterday, which basically means that the universe just came about in one day, and it was basically a burst of fireworks when all matter and energy in the universe was focused on a single quantum. So it's easy to imagine in that way, just a burst of fireworks, just a huge explosion, and then the world came up with. And that is the Naturally, Lemaitre was questioned by many scientists because this idea had not been came up with before, and he was the first to think of it. And even Albert Einstein referred to his discoveries as abominable at a conference, the Solway Conference in 1927. However, Einstein did contradict this statement in 1933 at a different conference and applauded Lemaitre and actually said, "This is the most beautiful and satisfactory explanation of creation to which I have ever listened." So at first he called him abominable, then he said his ideas were beautiful. And the reason why so many scientists question this, because they believe the earth to be eternal before that. They never had thought of that the earth just came about in one day. They all believed that earth had a beginning, a finite time in the past. So they believed that the universe had already existed, but Lemaitre was coming up with something completely different. So we know that Lemaitre was involved in the Catholic Church his whole life. He was even ordained as a Catholic priest. And this brought a lot of criticism from the church because they thought that he was denying the whole book of Genesis, but I don't believe that Lemaitre was. I think that he was just an avid scientist. He was a very smart man, and I think that his faith is actually what made him start to study in the first place. He also, of course, had the help of mathematics, physics, and astronomy to help guide his way to his discoveries, but I think his faith is what helped him get to his end discovery. He never put any limitations on God, and he even had a quote that said, he, talking about the Christian researcher, knows that not one thing in all creation has been done without God, but he knows also that God nowhere takes the place of his creatures. Omnipresent divine activities everywhere, essentially hidden. It never had to be a question of reducing the Supreme Being to the rank of a scientific hypothesis. So he always believed in God, and he was just looked at himself as a Christian researcher, and he even admitted that God had came up with all creation, but he knew that there wasn't any limitations on God, and he always had looked outside the box. Thank you for watching my project on Georges Lemaitre.